After living with that Jewish family, you have to know one thing, my life transformed. I lived from the source. I fell in love with the Bible. I fell in love with Jewish history. I found lots of commonalities, and I faced lots of inner battles between old Loay, who had wrong ideas about humanity, about Christians, about Jews, and about different people of different faiths. Now, the name Jesus in Arabic is Isa, and we were never told that he was Jewish. We were told he was Muslim, which doesn't make sense. He was Jewish. He was a proud Jew, born in Bethlehem, Judea, raised between Capernaum and Nazareth. He spoke Aramaic, prayed in Hebrew. He wore tzitzit. He spoke to the Jewish congregations. He celebrated Passover. And there is a difference, I'm telling you, between a radical Muslim and a spiritual Muslim. A spiritual Muslim, if I pray anytime, anywhere. And it is a command that when you pray, you should do your best not to be seen by people. But you know what radical Muslims do? They shut down roads in London. They shut down roads in Paris to pray, because it's not about a prayer. It's a show of power that we are coming and we are going to dominate. And as long as the West indulges this kind of ideology, the West will be gone.
So 7th of October for me, as I believe of most of the Jews in the world, in the diaspora and also in Israel especially, it's like a second Holocaust. That's how we felt. And I was drafting to the IDF, and as a soldier in the IDF, you have the values that we hold so dear to us. And the values is also for reconciliation. It's also for the purity of holding a weapon. Means that you don't go to someone to kill you if he didn't come to kill you. So if you don't really feel that there is a danger of your life, you don't take other person's life.
To my right here is Loay Alshareef. I did check with him if I pronounced that correctly. He is, first and foremost, he said to me, he's a linguist, but he is also someone who, about over 20 years ago, went from being very radical Islam to having a personal encounter, and has now he sees himself as having a role in bringing people together, as I understand it. He's a bridge builder, a peace advocate, and he rejects radical ideologies. So this is our guest today. He is of the Muslim faith. He lives in Abu Dhabi, but he's here to speak from that perspective, and I think we can learn a lot. And then to my far right is Daniel Yakcobi from Safi. Daniel is on a journey of walking by faith amid the tragedy and trauma of the Jewish people, and his personal story of becoming an advocate to transform South African stance from enemy to friend of Israel for a common future and benefits. And I think we can all agree that that is a very important mission. We do not agree with our own government stance against Israel, and we pray for the situation every week, as I've said. All right, so how we're going to do this today is I'm going to ask Loay to share a bit of his story, his background, his testimony, and why he's doing what he's doing. And then from there, we're going to ask a few more questions and see how that goes. Daniel, would you like to say something before Loay speaks?
Sure. And thank you, first of all, for Heinz, for your beautiful heart and for your friendship, and for welcoming us and allowing us to have this incredible experience, and all of you guys for being here today. We appreciate you, and I want to express my personal deep gratitude. I know we're living in a troubled times, especially in my country and my people, as you all were aware. But I want to say thank you for your beautiful heart, for your prayers. I hear that you are praying every week for the peace of Israel, and I want to really say thank you for your support. It means a lot to us as a community, and for my friends and for my family in Israel. So thank you for being you. We appreciate you. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
So thank you again, Hans, for hosting us. So let me just tell you the highlights of my story and my background. I was born and raised in Saudi Arabia to a Saudi Egyptian family. My mother's sides are Saudis who raised me, actually, and my father's sides are Egyptians. And I lived most of my life in Saudi. I went to school, and when I went to school, it was a very religious school. But now the education system in Saudi Arabia is, alhamdulillah, we improved a lot from 25 or I'm not young, by the way. I'm 42. So, for you to know. So people think, when were you radicalized? When you were like, what? You're now 30, right? I said, I'm 42. So, long time ago. So I went to a school in Jeddah, the most beautiful city in the world, of course, in Saudi. I memorized the whole Quran at the age of 17. Whoa. Yeah, but that indoctrination was alongside other indoctrinations that were like lots of radical ideas and lots of hateful ideas. So I always say we hated Jews first, Christians second. So, but Jews first. So. So I just want you to imagine that this kind of bringing up was not because of the family. My family was always liberal, and they were always fine. But you spend more time in school than time with your family. Until the age of 27, I was sent on a scholarship, a fully paid scholarship from Saudi to France, to Paris, and it was an exchange program to study French. And I lived there in France for like a couple of months. But the form of the program was called a host family program, a program where you land with a family. And in France, it's a super secular country. They would never tell you anything about the family. You would just find out yourself. And I found out they were Jewish. And you don't want to know what happened to me when I saw a big Star of David in the living room. I want to tell you one thing, that inshallah, next year I will have a book and I will mention all the details that you would not be able to comprehend, including the email that I still have from 2010 that I wrote to the school asking for a transfer because how dare you put me with a Jewish family? Wow. I don't feel proud of the person I was, but I'm so proud of the person I've become. After living with that Jewish family, you have to know one thing, my life transformed. I lived from the source. I fell in love with the Bible. I fell in love with Jewish history. I found lots of commonalities, and I faced lots of inner battles between old Loay, who had wrong ideas about humanity, about Christians, about Jews, and about different people of different faiths. And I want to tell you one thing. The great impact is that when I came back to Saudi, I started my media career 2011, teaching people languages, especially English. I speak English, French, Hebrew, and I read and write Egyptian hieroglyphs. Wow. FYI.
Hieroglyphs.
Hieroglyphs.
That's impressive.
And I speak proudly the language, I speak proudly Syriac Aramaic. And I did 2 interviews in full Syriac Aramaic with a Christian channel based in Stockholm, Sweden, which I feel so proud of.
That's impressive. Wow.
So the greatest impacts were when I did my YouTube show. I won the best educational idea in Saudi Arabia, 2013, and then I started do tourism shows for the Ministry of Tourism and for the biggest TV channel at that. Still today, it's called NBC, and there was like wave of success. I was so beloved in Saudi, not anymore, until I started my advocacy for peace with Israel. 2017, way before the Abraham Accords, and I doubled down after October 7. 0 regrets, proudly, and I'm so proud, as I said, of the person I become.
That's amazing. So just on a side note, you were able to watch, I'm assuming now, you were able to watch the movie The Passion of the Christ and understand what they're saying?
Yes.
You didn't have to put the subtitles on.
I was so fully I could fully comprehend.
That's
and
amazing.
It's a good movie, by the way.
That is, it's powerful. All right, so you had this journey. May I ask, what was it about your experience with that Jewish family that started making you do a mind shift about how you were thinking about things?
How we as Muslims honor, revere, believe in Jewish prophets, kings, and heroes, and we don't appreciate the connection. So let me give you a very funny story. Now, the name Jesus in Arabic is Isa, and we were never told that he was Jewish. Okay. We were told he was Muslim, which doesn't make sense. He was Jewish. Yeah. He was a proud Jew, born in Bethlehem, Judea, raised between Capernaum and Nazareth. He spoke Aramaic, prayed in Hebrew. He wore tzitzit. He spoke to the Jewish congregations. He celebrated Passover and also Sukkot. He attended the festival of dedication, which is Hanukkah, as it's written in John 10. He conversed with the Samaritan lady in Sukhar, next to Shechem in Israel. And he told her, you worship God on a mountain that you do not know, while we worship God on a mountain that we know, because salvation comes from the Jews. And millions of Muslims are named after Isa, and they say we hate Jews.
That's amazing.
Doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't.
So this knowledge that I acquired in that Jewish house from the source, not from the adversaries of Jews, made me connect the dots on how a true Muslim should not only appreciate Jews, but should always and also support Israel, Israel's legitimacy and Israel's existence. It's not about a government here or there. It's about the legitimacy of Israel as a Jewish land, as a place where Jews can prosper and thrive. And Israel, I'm not the representative of Israel, by the way, so I'm not even a citizen of Israel, but I'm just saying that Israel is a Jewish state, not exclusive to Jews. And those who hated Israel, once they go to Israel and see its beauty, will fall in love, will never be able to control their emotions, but not to fall in love with Israel.
Powerful. I'm going to double down on my previous question, because I'm very curious. You were in this home as a young student.
27, I was 27.
27?
Now I'm 42.
Okay, you were there as an old student.
To reaffirm.
So the family had a father, mother, children. Was there another student in the house?
It was a single mother with...
Single mother?
A single mother with 3 kids.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and no, I was the only student, and I was learning French, and at that time it was like lots of conversations happening about Judaism and about the Bible and about Hebrew. Even I learned Hebrew, and people say, where did you learn your Hebrew? I said, France.
Wow. So this lady must have been very well versed in Torah.
Traditional, but she comes from an Arabic background, Tunisian, Yemeni, so she understands the problems that Jews and Muslims had. So she was very, very well informed. And we had lots of meaningful conversations.
That's
when she
amazing.
asked me, why do you hate Jews? I said, we were ordered to hate Jews.
Yeah.
We were told to hate Jews. She said, so this enmity you believe is eternal? I said, yes, because this is what we believe. It's eternal. She told me, Loay, you know what God said about the Egyptians in the Torah, ancient Egyptians, that God will smite his hand against Egypt, that God will do this and do that. I said, yeah, we have something similar in the Quran. She said, but that's not against all Egyptians. That's against the Egyptians who oppressed the Hebrews. But when the Jews left, or when the Hebrews left the land of Egypt, you know what God commanded the Hebrews? He told them in Hebrew, "Lo tet'ev mitzri ki ger hayita be'artzo." You should never abhor an Egyptian because you were foreigners in their land. You were foreigners in their land. So there is nothing called eternal enmity. That touched my heart, and that made me feel this is my God.
Wow, that's amazing.
Just giving you one example of so many conversations we had.
But what I'm hearing is that lady was very wise. She was well informed and well read, and what I'm hearing is that God set it up that you would go to that house.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I want to say one thing. This lady now lives in Israel.
Okay.
She left France after the anti-Semitic attack against one of the synagogues in 2014.
Sure.
And I'm sorry to say this. France, the country that de-radicalized Loay, is becoming more radical now.
Wow. Just for a moment, elaborate on that. What are you seeing happening? And why do you say that?
France and the West, unfortunately, they misunderstand the radical ideologies that come from the Middle East. And I'm an expert on that because I was de-radicalized and I know exactly what it means. Those radicals go to the West, misuse the liberal freedom that the West is giving them, and conquer their societies. They don't go to assimilate. They go to dominate. Wow. And there is a difference, I'm telling you, Heinz, between a radical Muslim and a spiritual Muslim. A spiritual Muslim, if I pray anytime, anywhere. And it is a command that when you pray, you should do your best not to be seen by people. But you know what radical Muslims do? They shut down roads in London. They shut down roads in Paris to pray because it's not about a prayer. It's a show of power that we are coming and we are going to dominate. And as long as the West indulges this kind of ideology, the West will be gone. And the West, especially France, London, and other America, thank God, is waking up. But London or France, I would say, and I'm saying this with lots of grief, France is being lost because they don't get it. They don't get how they should. I'm not saying don't welcome immigrants, but you should have due diligence on who comes, and you should make them feel appreciative of being citizens of that country, honestly.
Is it true that many Muslim migrants went to the West under the guise of we need asylum, and they were given asylum, but then they were actually busy with a plan to dominate?
So radical Islamist ideologies like the Muslim Brotherhood instructs its asylum seekers to go and dominate. And I want to tell you, they live in the age of empires, and we passed the age of empires. Yeah. There is no Ottoman Empire, there is no British Empire. We are now in the nation states era. They don't believe in nation states. They believe that they want to restore a caliphate, and if a caliphate is restored, trust me, we will be the first ones, the Muslims, regular, spiritual, moderate Muslims, we will be the first victims, because we will be apostates, and we will be... Jews come next, then, of course. So
just explain first what a caliphate is, please.
Caliphate is like an empire that has a central government, doesn't believe in borders or nation states.
Okay.
So that was in the 7th, 8th century, could be understood in that context, where everyone had an empire, but not anymore. We are not empires anymore. We are nation states, and as you said, many of the radical Muslim groups or radical Islamist groups, they send people to the West not to assimilate. They don't teach them that you should be grateful for the chance that America gave you or France gave you. They want to change the demography because they are using the system against its own.
Yeah.
This is why Rachel, the Jewish mother, left France. I want you to read more about the synagogue attack in 2014. That was the incident and now she lives in Israel. Every time I go to Israel, I see her. She lives in the French colony of Israel, which is Netanya. Netanya, everyone speaks French.
Oh, wow.
So she lives in Netanya.
Daniel, may I go to you next? I'd like to get your perspective as someone who's from Israel and seeing things from another perspective. Maybe elaborate just on two main things for now. The impact of October 7th, the attacks that it had on Israel as a nation, and the rise of anti-Semitism that you've experienced. And then if you can couple in that the experience of seeing the South African government taking the strong stance that it has against your nation. Just explain, how does that feel to someone like you and those who also come from Israel and are seeing this happening?
Firstly, I want to thank Loay. It's so incredible to have you and hear your perspective and your experience and your lots of wisdom and knowledge. Really appreciate you. So, for those of you in the room that figured I'm from Israel, Jewish, live in South Africa for the last 13 years. Thank God I have my kids here with me, Liam and Emily, 11 and 10-year-old, and my little one is not here, she's 4, but all 3 of them born in South Africa in Cape Town. So I got a very strong connection, and my heart is here, I'm still here. And I genuinely believe, I will start with the end in mind, like we saw in the worship before, I genuinely believe that South Africa have a significant part in God's plan. Same as you praying for Israel and you seeing that Israel is part of God's plan, I believe that South Africa is part of God's plan, and I'm going to explain. So 7th of October for me, as I believe of most of the Jews in the world, in the diaspora, and also in Israel especially, it's like a second Holocaust. That's how we felt. And I can tell you that this has caught me at 6:39 in the morning. I'm an early riser, and Simchat Torah. I normally, on Shabbat, Simchat Torah, I'm not on my phone, but my phone didn't stop ring. And it rings even from 6:15. I started to get calls, and I will explain how that's even possible. So when I got the call and I pick up the phone, it was Tomer, one of my friends in Ashdod, very close friend of mine. We traveled the world together, we did businesses together. And he's saying to me, Daniel, there is an attack on Israel. Hamas broke, and we're seeing them freely in the Otef, in the Gaza Strip. And he's sending me a link. It was an online link that Hamas opened, and they live streamed the atrocities that they did in that moment. So I'm in South Africa, I'm in Cape Town, but I'm seeing live what is happening in Israel. I have to tell you, I felt like a second Holocaust because I felt like we are being massacred. And why? I see children being murdered in front of me. I see elderly people being murdered. I don't want even to go into the graphics, but it was really horrible what they did to women, especially the young ladies. And I just think this is because of who we are, for identity. Now I'm going to take you a few years back when I was a soldier in 2005. Tomer and I served in Golani unit, and you can Google it. 21 of us, including me, 22 of us, disobeyed an order to evacuate our people from the Gaza Strip because Israel as a state gave out the land to the Palestinians, so-called, to the Palestinian Authority. So they took us out. They told us to take our friends, our families out of their home, to give the whole Gaza Strip for the Arab Muslims, so-called, the Palestinians in that area, to be governed by themselves. So this will be a peace gesture for them to say, please don't fight us anymore. If this is a land issue, take the land. So I disobeyed an order. I was sent to jail for disobeying an order. And I've been released a few days later, but still, I went against my government. And why it's so important? Because for me, and you asked me about how I felt on 7th of October, it felt like this is not the land issue, because Gaza been given to them. And for that moment, I felt personally that this is a second Holocaust that my grandparents, who are still alive, felt when they fled the Nazi Germany, when they saw most of their families butchered and massacred. So the trauma that my grandparents hold now been trickled down to me again in our generation. But I'm still hopeful that we are the generation of redemption, please God. And I count to you, Liam and Emily, and all the other kids in the room. And since that moment, I saw that South Africa, 2 days later, now remember, I'm in South Africa. The ANC government, Naledi Pandor at that time, she was a minister, she picked up the phone and she called Hamas. That even didn't make sense. 9 days later, before we even launched our attack on Gaza to bring back our hostages, we saw the government of South Africa, of the ANC at that time, standing with kafiyas. Most of them are Christians going to Rhema Church with Palestinian flags, standing and taking a biased, hostile, discriminating approach against the state of Israel for not even launch the attack yet. Remember, we recruited 130,000 reservists. That takes time. So we only had surgical, points that we went inside to bring back the hostages, which we managed to recover some of the fences and some of the bodies. It took us about a week, 7 to 10 days, just to count the bodies and to find the bodies that they massacred. So the really, oppressive attack that we had experienced, it only started 2 weeks later. So it didn't make sense how the ANC government of South Africa, of a place that I am in, taking such a crazy stand.
Heinz, I want to add to this, very important. I agree with Daniel. It was never about the land. And you know why am I doing what I'm doing? Because I believe it's a battle of education. Those who did this on October 7 did this. I'm just giving you the blunt answer. I'll give you the blunt answer that no one will give you in the Arab world. It's because they believe that when they kill Jews, they go to paradise. Simple, basic and elementary. You want proof? I'm sorry, Jews first, Christians second. You want proof? You remember what happened in Libya 2015? A group of Egyptian Copts preaching for Christianity in Libya. Some of them, they say they were just workers. Some of them, they say they were preachers. So what? Let them preach. Anyway, they were caught by ISIS. They were beheaded live on video. Yeah, it was not about the land. No. It's about, oh, their crime is preaching. Let them preach. Why you're so insecure? Why are you so insecure? If we don't have the courage and the audacity to say that religious leaders in the Muslim faith, and all other faiths as well, there are radicals everywhere, but we make the loudest noise. If we don't have the courage to say we need to have a reform and a reconciliation between Muslims and Christians and Jews and other faiths, this will keep on exploding. And because I managed to succeed in doing this and proudly embarking a mission of knowledge, facts, and the truth on social media, I will keep on doing this because I believe the next generation of Gazans can be saved, can be prevented to be monsters like those on October 7 who throw grenades on bunkers filled with young Israelis or who kidnap toddlers. In which dictionary resistance is kidnapping a toddler? Or those who were killing Jews who were begging for their lives. But the evil ideology is behind that. And if I wasn't saved by that Jewish mother, and I was still being a radical, maybe I couldn't end up in an ending that wouldn't satisfy God. So I really believe that you bless the Jews, you'll be blessed. Amen. It is true.
I want to add to what you said. I want to add to what Loay is saying, and maybe for some of us it won't be so easy to hear it, but I have to say the truth for what it is, especially for me, because you asked me a very important question. And Loay picked up and says that until we're going to educate the next generation, we will continue to see these extremists rising, and we want to minimize extremists. But remember I told you, I shared with you that I'm a descendant for Holocaust survivors, right? My grandparents, which are still alive, and God bless their souls, may they live for longer life and in good health, they will never accept me coming, for example, in the church. And they, from the trauma of Nazi Germany, they even told me, well, my wife is coming from the Christian faith, she's a guide, she's becoming Jewish before I met her, but even when I met my wife, they told me, she's from a Christian family. So yes. Now, my parents were more reluctant and say, no, if you love her, we love her. But my grandparents took them so long to even accept it. So you must understand the trauma. Now look at my parents. My parents came when the state of Israel miraculously established in 1948. We also believed it's part of the prophecies. And we're living an incredible prophetic time. Yeah. But my father, he went from one war to another war, to another war, to another terror attack, to another terror attack. So he lives through that trauma of his parents, and now he's going through his trauma. And I was drafting to the IDF, and as a soldier in the IDF, you have the values that we hold so dear to us. And the values is also for reconciliation. It's also for the purity of holding a weapon. Means that you don't go to someone to kill you if he didn't come to kill you. So if you don't really feel that there is a danger of your life, you don't take the person's life, right? Which is also biblical. So why I'm sharing that? I'm sharing that because we're living through trauma and generations, and we need to break through this trauma. We have to break this trauma, and I'm taking on myself. So when I was in South Africa on 7th of October, coming back to your question, I felt the calling about my life. I was a bit of a selfish man, living in my bubble, doing great business in South Africa, living my beautiful family, hiking the mountain, cycling, doing sport, as Capetonians do. And I just felt I need also to do something. If I'm not going to be drafted to the IDF, if I'm in South Africa, might as well be drafted to be a soldier of God. And I found myself in a church just 2 weeks later. Thank God I want to mention Vivian Mybro with Mark from the International Christian Embassy of Jerusalem. They are really amazing partners. And Chris and Cecilia Eden from Bridges of Peace. They're really an incredible people that are doing a lot of good for Israel and for the Jewish people. And I found these beautiful friends. Well, Vivian and I have a personal stories that by divine experience we met each other before in a Pesach and a Passover in Kimberley from all places. And I just felt like God is calling me to go to the churches. Now, if you're looking at it, and I will be very frank and open, if you're looking at it from a South Africa perspective, right? How many Christians on the demographic of South Africa do you know? In percentage-wise of the population? It says 80%-ish. Yeah. So that's about 80%. Even if it's more than 50%, what is that telling us? It's telling us that there is a natural affinity in the church for Israel, for those who believe that, like you said, Yeshua was Jewish, and that Israel is part of God's plan, and why the Jewish people holding so secret to the Torah and the commandments, right? And we're still practicing same rituals and same traditions since 3,000 years, which I think it's only beautiful. We have only so beautiful things to give. But coming back to the radicalists, we need to break that, pattern of trauma and looking at the other person differently. We need to look at the other person, which we are the same. Yes, we can practice differently, we can worship differently, but what we really want from our life, we want family values, we want our communities to thrive, we want our society to be in good order and to live together. That's what we really want. So I took on myself to come to the churches and to do what we're doing here, to bring a bit more awareness and more knowledge, but also to bring about, which I believe in my spirit, to bring unity. And unity comes when we are together, when we are sharing the same values, sharing the same common future. So if God chose, and this is my message and my hope, if God chose South Africa in times such as this, to take such a strong stance on Israel, but we're saying that there is such an incredible demographic of Christians, we must do this and turn it and be a friend of Israel so South Africa can be blessed and South Africa can prosper.
Amen. I totally agree. I think the nation that curses Israel will be cursed as well. And that's partly why we pray. It's to stand in the gap in a way and to be a voice. And
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Not only Israel, but also Zion. I want to be very specific. Because I always address my 100 million Muslims who are named after David, and they are called Dawood, and they say, we hate Zionists. We hate the Zionists so much. I say, you are named after the King of Israel, who said in Psalm 129, many a times have they afflicted me from my youth, let Israel now say, many a times have they afflicted me from my youth, yet they have not prevailed against me. Let all those who hate Zion be put to shame and turn back. How many Muslims are named Dawood? Millions. What do you think of Zion? We hate Zion. Doesn't make sense.
Education.
Exactly. I recently, a couple of months ago, I had the privilege of speaking to a young lady who survived the October 7th attack at the Nova Festival. And I also spoke to a young Druze lady who has an advocacy mission to tell people there's no apartheid in Israel. The first lady told me that what they know and see is that the main problem is that the young Gazans are from young, they are indoctrinated and educated to hate Jews. Is this true? Is this what you also know about?
And it is true.
So education is not the problem. It's the correct kind of education that needs to be happening.
I had a look at the UNRWA curricula and it's terrible. UNRWA is not part of the solution, FYI. Yeah. And absolutely, they teach kids horrible things about Jews. And I can see why so many kids become radical. This is why I'll just talk about solutions. Next, when this war ends, inshallah, and when this ugly war that Hamas started ends, humanity will really appreciate Israel. A country of the size of New Jersey gave the world blessings, gave the world cherry tomatoes, USB, Waze, Philicam, inventions, high tech, gave a country of the size of New Jersey, taking out evil, cleaning up the mess in the Middle East. Not many people appreciate that now. They will appreciate it later. When that happens, when we work on solutions, fixing education, curricula, and encouraging moderate Muslims to speak up. Please don't tell me I'm a moderate Muslim, but you see the radicals are speaking in your name and you're just whitewashing their crimes by being silent. Speak up. Speak up and say, this is not my faith. I would never support those who would. Not many people condemned October 7. UAE did. Bahrain did. Some other countries did in English, not in Arabic. They are afraid. If you're afraid, then how can you ask people to change? When we have this kind of reform, and we are the youngest faith, when we have this kind of reform, we would see a better future for the Middle East. Yes, we are different, but we have so many things in common. And we can build a brighter Middle East where Abraham would look down to his children and feel proud that we are working on our commonalities rather fighting over our differences.
On that note, please share a bit about what are the Abraham Accords, what does it mean, and what's going on that level?
Abraham Accords are the peace accords that President Donald J. Trump, may God bless him, brought to the Middle East in 2020. And the greatest reason between Israel and 4 Arab states, UAE, Bahrain, Morocco, Sudan. And the real reason why Hamas committed October 7 was to torpedo the next country that should have joined the Abraham Accords, which is Saudi Arabia. This is the reason. Even if it cost all of his population, they don't care about their people. They don't care about their people or their population. They don't have value for life. When I first went to Israel, 2024 November, I was welcomed. I was given a very nice welcome by the Houthis. 2 missiles fired at Israel. You know what happened? I went to the shelter. And when I went to the shelter, we spent 10 minutes laughing and everyone was just relaxing. We left the shelter, business as usual. You know what I realized? I realized that Israel really appreciates the life of its citizens, visitors, residents. It built shelters. Hamas did not build shelters to its own citizens. They don't care about the lives of their own citizens. They want to magnify the loss of their citizens so they can put pressure on Western countries that don't really understand and get the radical ideology. But Israel values life. Israel values life. And when I left the shelter, I said, and I wrote a tweet in Arabic, and I said to the Houthis, I want to tell you something about Israel. Those who appreciate life cannot be defeated by those who worship death.
Wow. Doesn't it say in the Torah that you must take care of the sojourner, the stranger in your land? And that's exactly what he's saying. Even if you are a stranger in Israel, there's safety, there's protection, right? Am I right?
Yes,
Is that part of the values?
Indeed, and it's funny that you're saying it today, because this Shabbat that we're reading every portion, of the Torah, it was from Shoftim, the judges, the laws that we're applying. And this particular Shabbat, we're actually learning about how to governing the military, the army. So what we should do and what we shouldn't do. And this is definitely part of the laws. And even just going to add one more than that, it started with your gates. So everyone that coming, like he says, he come within the gate. Within the gate, you will need to have a shelter or a protection for your guests.
But also the verse that you're referring to, I think it's in Deuteronomy. You should love the foreign resident because you, Israel, were foreigners in the land of Egypt.
True.
Yes.
That's also from this week.
Be a part-time pastor. I'm just kidding.
I love it. No, I think he knows the Old Testament and the New Testament probably better than some Christians. It's quite amazing. So we are living in a very tense situation right now. If I understand it correctly, Israel is being attacked in seven ways.
8.
8.
Including South Africa.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
The legal and PR campaign.
That is so embarrassing. All right. So I think let's talk solutions. All right. Solutions to this situation. I wanted to start this morning by saying a Christian, a Jew, and a Muslim walked into a church. Okay. But I forgot about that little joke. Now that we've spoken, I feel like I can make it. But we're sitting here, representing these different faiths, and all three of us have at least this thing in common where we want to see the death end. We want to see the radicalization, the bad education. We want to see that come to an end. We also want to see a change of our government's position towards Israel. We also want to see that Israel can become safe. What are your thoughts on that, and how do we achieve that? And maybe get practical, speak to us and those who are listening, say, how can each individual be part of the solution in small and big ways? And how do we move forward?
So there are so many solutions. First of all, we all agree that this war has to end. And this war has to end the right way by bringing the hostages back home and disarming Hamas. And I'm speaking to the international players, those who embolden Hamas by taking unilateral steps and recognizing whatever you want to recognize. This will not help the war to end. And you have to know that Israel, I said it in the Netherlands and I'm saying it here in South Africa, is not fighting on its behalf. Israel is fighting on behalf of humanity. You have to know that. The IDF soldier on the ground in Gaza, he's not just fighting on behalf of citizens of Israel. He's fighting on behalf of those who are endangered of having radicals crossing the borders and vandalizing the society. So this is one. Two, we have to start building, and I'm doing this at least with many NGOs, the day after programs. Like, imagine an exchange program where we take Arabs from Saudi Arabia, UAE, Egypt, Kuwait, Oman, with Israelis from Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Nazareth, and we put them in Africa where they can mingle and work on a voluntary project. When they go back home, and those Arabs would face friends who would say, oh, you know what happened today with a Jewish evil guy? I said, what do you say? I work with a Jew. I have a Jewish friend. We work together on a project in Africa. We need to have the exchange program that I went through amplified and have more exchange programs.
Yeah, how do we do
this
that?
This is a practical solution. Plus, the last but not least, education. And I believe since I defeated radicalism, I have the keys to dismantle hate. But it has also to come from a religious authority, because I'm not a religious authority. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm a normal citizen and a content creator and a peace advocate. But religious authority that would say, first step to solve a problem is to identify we have a problem. Yes. And then we need to solve it.
Yeah. It's great. Thank you for that. It's so true. So the Abraham Accord Agreement obviously is facilitating an incredible, a trend, a trend, which is a trend in the Middle East. And those Arab countries that will jump on will normalize their relationships with Israel. It will be based maybe on bilateral trade agreements, but once you start to trade between states, you normalize the relationships, and the fundamental will happen that they will recognize Israel's right to exist. So that's, I think, for the Middle East, it's very important. But because we are in South Africa, raise your hand who want to see South Africa turning and being a friend of Israel. Baruch Hashem. Thank God. So how can we do it? Okay, thank you, Emily. How can we do it? Well, there is many solutions, right? But I can identify some of them that, we are engaging with as an organization, the South African Friends of Israel. First is what Loay just shared, is for us to educate and coming together and to do some sorts of initiatives, right? We're also launching humanitarian initiatives, so it will be really great if we have people from other nations coming in, because South Africa experiencing such a really devastating economy at the moment, with unemployment rate, with hunger rate. There is 20 million people in South Africa hungry. 8 million of them are kids. This goes against the constitution, the education system. There is an attack on freedom of religion that you can see from the CLR Commission, you can see from Naledi Pandor being hijacking the Nelson Mandela Foundation, for example. So there is all sorts of challenges that South Africa is experiencing on the economy side, freedom of religion, on society, on education. So we need to come up, and I don't know who are you in the room, but I'm hoping and I'm praying that even one of you that will come up with an initiative to have a position in a company that can start and speak up and take a stand. So it's so important to speak up and to have truth to power. That's the first thing that I will say. And then coming up with an initiatives with the ICEJ, with Bridges of Peace. Obviously, they're more focusing on Israel, and we want to focus more on South Africa, but there is so many other NGOs that we can work with. And to be able to see the transformation of South Africa, when the head is sick, the body is sick. So when the leaders of this country are sick, it's a problem, because it's trickled down in their policies and their governance. So we really need to have voters' education, and the church can facilitate an incredible part in terms of educating and bring truth to power. I'm praying and hope that we will see and again, it's not limited, but because of the demographic of South Africa, that we will experience a type of political party, right, or a movement that will have truth to power, that will have Christian-Judeo values, not limited, can be Muslim as well, but that have identified what is our values, starting with our nuclear families, what we stand up together, what we're not compromising on our nuclear families, which will impact our communities, which will have a greater impact on our society. Once we identify those values, which is quite simple because God gave us the 10 Commandments. If you can just stick to the 10 Commandments, we'll have a better life. But identifying those values, coming together, educating, and then finding those leaders that can take us forward. Please, God.
Amen. So, I have so many questions. I don't think we'll get to all of them. I think from partly of today, what I'm hoping to achieve is that we will educate some Christians. Within the Christian faith, there are many denominations. Apparently, there's like 6 main lines, but like 40,000 different denominations. So apparently, we struggle to agree on some ways of worshiping God. But
can you give an example? Sorry.
Can you give an example? I can give you many. Many. So Roman Catholics have many things that they do and believe in that are very different from what we would maybe call the mainstream evangelical way. So the mainstream evangelicals do not believe that you need to go through a priest to confess your sins and then pay something to be absolved. We believe we can go directly to God through Jesus Christ. There's them praying to Mary. We believe that's a form of idolatry, so that's not part of what we do. So but the world will look at Catholics and a church like us and say, we're all Christian. But inside we're like, that's not. But then there are very small, insignificant, petty things that people differ over. Like I remember as a child, some churches local churches would split up because we prefer to wear ties, you prefer not to wear ties, so let's split. Or we only sing these kinds of songs and you want to sing those kinds of songs, and so we split. So some of it's really, stupid, but there are some significant differences as well. But what I'd like to ask, for us as Christians, we know very little, typically, of the Muslim faith, how it is structured. You mentioned earlier, some are radical, some are spiritual. I think that was the term you used. Just help us understand, because unfortunately, when we see radicalized Muslims, we tend to want to fear all Muslims. Yeah. So how can you help us understand when we look at the faith, the Muslim faith, Islam, how should we look at it? How can we educate ourselves better into understanding it? What kind of factions do you have? I don't know if that's a long answer, but just help us a bit to understand it a bit better, if I can say that.
My understanding of Islam as a Muslim is very simple. Now, it's a monotheistic faith that Prophet Muhammad brought to the Arabs, that there is one God that we need to worship. He is the same God who revealed the message of monotheism to all the prophets that we honor and revere who were Jewish. Okay. Have to put some emphasis on that. And the idea of the Quran, 90% of the idea of the Quran is that we are here on this life to be tested, and we will die, and there will be a resurrection where God will judge you for your deeds, good and bad. And either for that you will go to heaven or you will go to hell. That is the simple idea. Now, there are other verses that I call the tricky hard verses that talk about circumstantial events that took place in the 7th century between the Prophet and Arab and other tribes, whether they were not only Jews, Christians, and also Arab tribes who stood against the Prophet. Now, if you look at that in the contextual view of the 7th century, where you had a Byzantine Empire and a Roman and Christian empires in Africa, who had political alliances with some Arabian tribes, you could just put that in context and say whatever happened there should stay there. But we have radical preachers who say we should recreate the circumstances for these verses and apply it every time, everywhere. And this is absolutely horrendous, because the Bible says a slave should obey his master. God's words. But we don't have slavery now. If a radical comes to you and say, no, that means we should restore slavery, he would be a fanatic, because no one actually believes in restoring something that was abolished or something that doesn't exist anymore. So there are verses in the Quran that are violent, that could be taken out of or taken by the radicals and say they are applicable every time and everywhere. And this is why you have the radical Islamists everywhere in the West. But a spiritual Muslim would just need to have the basics. You pray 5 times a day, or now I'm traveling, I do 3 times a day. You go to Mecca to do pilgrimage. We have no association to Jerusalem as Muslims. Never. All of this came later on. Just look at the history of our faith, of all of our empires or caliphates. Jerusalem was never there. Cairo was there, Damascus was there, Medina was there, Najaf was there, Karbala was there. Jerusalem, never. Jerusalem only became significant when the Crusaders came and Saladin captured Jerusalem from Richard, and then other Crusaders took Jerusalem, and the significance became higher. But before that, at the time of the Prophet or his companions, 100,000 companions of the Prophet died after him. How many visited Jerusalem? 26. What a significant city that was, of course, in a mockery. So I'm just saying, do pilgrimage, fast the month of Ramadan.
Does it mean anything to you? The fact that Al-Aqsa on the mount, does it mean anything to you in Jerusalem?
Al-Aqsa, to me, that's a very, very good question. To me, the holiest sites in Islam is the Grand Mosque in Mecca and the Prophet Mosque in Medina. Al-Aqsa is not significant to me. The only significance to me of Al-Aqsa is that the site is the site where Solomon's temple once stood. And if a Muslim says, we don't believe in Solomon's temple, remind them that they are using the Arabic word that is derived from the Hebrew word. We use, you know, what we name Jerusalem in Arabic? Bayt al-Maqdis. You know where it comes from? Beit HaMikdash. You know what Beit HaMikdash in Hebrew? It's the temple. And those, yeah, I know it's funny, you know, trust me. And by the way, I want to tell you one thing. And to those who deny, especially because when I was indoctrinated by Al Jazeera, that the temple never stood still. There was never a Jewish temple in Jerusalem. Tell them that Loay Alshareef is inviting you for a trip on his own expenses, not to Israel, to Italy, Rome. Near the Colosseum, there's an Arch of Titus, where Titus built this monument to celebrate his victory over the Jews. You know what that arch has? Roman soldiers carrying a menorah. You know what does that tell you? I'm not talking about the Bible, biblical history. I'm not talking about Josephus, Pliny, or other historians. No. Physical. monument in Rome. Roman soldiers carrying menorah. You know what does that tell you? 5 things. First, there were Jews in the land of Israel. 2, they prospered because they have spoils of war. 3, there was a temple. Why? The menorah comes from the temple. The menorah that Jesus, when he went to Jerusalem and recognized the festival of dedication, which is the dedication of the temple, that was the victory of the Hasmonean family or the Maccabees over the Seleucids and Antiochus 160 years before Jesus. So you see, my friend, this is the problem. Knowledge and this kind, and imagine what kind of knowledge would that solve? Yasser Arafat refused to sign a peace deal with Israel. According to Bill Clinton in his book, My Biography, he said that Arafat told me, Mr. President, I don't recognize a temple. I don't recognize a Jewish temple in Jerusalem. I wish Clinton would tell him, Loay is inviting you on his own expenses to take a trip to Italy, Mr. President, and to see the monument that is called Arch of Titus. You know how many people don't know about that?
Wow.
The majority. The majority.
You're not just a linguist, you're a historian. I love all
history.
I love
things
history.
you know.
Can I add one more thing over here?
Yes, please.
The Romans not only destroyed the temple, and you're right, by taking the menorah, which is very famous in the Arch of Titus, they also named the region Syria Palestina. And this is the origin of where we're seeing the Palestine of today.
Yeah.
Now, if you're looking at history, the Arab conquests were in the land for 1,000 years, right? So they built Al-Aqsa Mosque, but they did it by purpose. And they built it on the Temple Mount because they knew that this will be secret and very holy to the Jews. Now, how many of you know, raise your hand, how many times Jerusalem was mentioned in the Bible?
How many? Sure.
800 times? 800 times.
Sure.
Now, Loay is even telling you in the Quran is not mentioned, but
Ephes. Ephes in Hebrew means zero.
And this is why you can see that there is a natural affinity from the church to Israel, because we are looking at that from the same scriptures, from the same perspective. This is our faith. It's our shared faith that we're praying for the peace of Jerusalem.
And I'll add one last thing before you go to the next point. I have many very aggressive conversations with Arab Christians who call me a Zionist, which is I'm a proud Muslim Zionist, of course. But
a Muslim Zionist, I love it. I'm a proud Muslim Zionist.
Yeah, they say, for example, because it's a very important part to understand why the land was called Syria Palestina. I tell them, you know what? Forget Hadrian, forget historians. Let's look what Jesus called the land. In the Gospel of Matthew, verily I say to you, you will never go through all the cities or the towns of Israel until the Son of Man comes back.
Yeah.
The 5 strongholds of the Philistines that the name Palestine comes from were Ashdod, Ashkelon, Gaza, Gat, and Akron. Jesus never stepped a foot in any of these towns. And he called the land Judea, and the towns of the land, the towns of Israel. If that makes you a Zionist, then Jesus was a Zionist.
Boom.
Boom.
Drop the mic. I want to ask you what might be a controversial question, but based on everything you've said today, where you are at, just on a personal level, may I ask you, why have you not moved from Islam to Christianity?
Good question. I believe that we are 1.8 billion people, and I believe my faith has so many beautiful things, and I want to save Muslims from being radicals. If you tell them, yo, your faith is corrupt, let's just all leave the faith, you will never build bridges. But if you tell them, I am your fellow Muslim, and I'm a Muslim, of course, but we have a cleanup work, and we have to do some reconciliation with our Christian and Jewish brothers, you will save millions of lives of being radicals, rather than just going to them and tell them your faith is shunned. You just have to, because it's not actually practical.
No, because I hear you have so much reverence for Yeshua,
I
for
love Jesus so much, of course. I love Jesus. So, of course.
How
That's
important it
amazing.
is to call him Yeshua.
Yeah.
What is the meaning of his name, Yeshua?
Yeah.
What is the meaning? Salvation.
Yeshua is actually a second name, Yeshua and Joshua are the same, by the way.
Yes.
Joshua and Yeshua. So I always say that. But you should have asked me, why didn't you convert to Judaism? Because I'm an honorary Jew already. No, I'm just saying that
I'm fighting on this side.
I see lots of bridges can be built based on this understanding, and if you get rid of the insecurity that many radical preachers in Islam have, you will reach different places. And the idea of forcing people to convert, or the proselytizing thing, I don't really think it should be focused on. The thing that should be focused on is to bring light to people.
Okay.
And give them the free will.
I hear you.
Give them the free will.
That's good.
And the most fascinating verse in the New Testament I want to tell you is in John, when he said, I'm trying to translate from Arabic, he who claims that he loves God and hates his brother is a liar. Because how could you hate your brother that you see and claim that you love God that you do not see? I'm trying to translate from Arabic. So
I think it's 1 John, but it's powerful. We have to unfortunately bring this to a close. Final thought, Daniel, final thought, Loay.
My final thought is, it's not an easy battle, but with the help of God, we will make it happen. Every time I post something on Instagram or first of all, you have to follow me on Instagram. Not only follow, like, share, and comment.
Sure. Subscribe.
Yeah. Every time I do this, I say, I praise God for making me go through this journey. I'll tell you why. Because when I receive lots of attacks from my people or my community, I have the empathy. You know why? Because I've been in their shoes. I was on the other side of the river.
Sure.
And I saw the darkness, defeated it, and I said, thank you, I'm not going back. And now I see a light with the help of God, and I will make this until what Isaiah said becomes true, when he said, nation shall not lift up sword against nation, they shall learn war no more. Wow. I want to live in the Middle East where we learn more, no war, where we care more about AI, high-tech, and reaching Mars first.
Daniel?
You can share, like, and subscribe here. I don't do social media. Please follow him.
But we can follow Safi.
And yes, Safi is important.
Yeah.
And please subscribe to God. And let's start calling for his name, Yeshua. We want to have the generation of redemption. And I genuinely believe that the church can stand in the gap and we can feel that transformation today in our life. And the precondition of the verse that you just mentioned on our United Nations building is the verse before, in Isaiah chapter 2, verse 3. He quoted verse 4. For from Zion the Torah shall come forth, and the word of God from Jerusalem.
Wow.
So please God, may we merit to see the redemption in our life.
Amen. Let's give our guests a big round of applause. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching this episode of the In HeinzSight BoldCast. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it empowered you, equipped you, and at least made you think about a few things you may not have thought about before. We want to encourage you to leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, like this video, share it with as many people as possible, and check out the other videos on this channel. There are some amazing conversations that you may not have heard yet from people that you may not be familiar with, but that have amazing things to share with you. So make sure you go and check them out. We also want to encourage you to go out and be bold, stand for the truth. Do not be ashamed of your biblical or more conservative worldview. It's time to stand up. It's time to speak up. Remember, boldness is contagious.